Time now for another edition of Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, kind enough to join us each and every week, brought to you by the Old 97 Cafe. And Rosie, let's get into this guy, David Fry. Fry does a little bit of everything for us. He's hitting, he's playing left, he's playing right, he's catching, he's playing first. He's a pretty valuable guy that nobody knows about, but you do. Talk a little bit and educate us on David Fry.
It's interesting, right? Because sometimes you got to be in the right spot. And he was in the Brewers organization after being drafted. It was funny. He said he played a lot of shortstop in high school and college, and but he was too slow. The scouts said, "We'll draft you, but you're going to be a catcher." So that's how he kind of developed in the Brewers, and then they started moving him around a little bit. And when he came over in a trade prior to last season, he started playing more positions at Columbus and had a good year at the plate. So he was kind of on the radar this spring a little bit, but still more of a veteran guy, not a prospect type that you heard a whole lot about. But he impressed Terry Francona during the spring. And when an opportunity arose here, he's come up and he's done a really nice job in a lot of different positions. And you mentioned outfield. That was not one of them. He played, he said, maybe 20 games there in the minor leagues. But they ask him to go out there and he never says no to anything. And that's his ticket right now, is his versatility, because when he's in the lineup, wherever he plays, he's been swinging the bat well. And that's been a big key too. So great guy to have on a club. I think every team wants that Swiss Army knife type of guy who can play everywhere. And he's that guy for the Guardians this year.
He also, and you can jump into this a little bit as we get into the woods here, is he gives Terry some flexibility and some options as the games progress. And we play a lot of tight games because that's who we are. It really gives Terry some options, knowing that he can move this guy around or bring him in to do different things as these games get into innings 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah. And you know, when they start Naylor, they want to give Gallagher the complete night off, the backup catcher. And the same goes the other way. If it's Gallagher starting it, they want Bo to have that night off completely if they can. So that's where Fry comes in, you know, as that person who can, if the catcher's pinch hit for, he'll come on and finish up the game. And what a luxury that is, to be able to give your regular catchers a full day off. And so that's kind of where that starts. But then, you know, we see him come on in other spots too. So it is valuable. And then he and Tyler Freeman have been really, really good about figuring out routines and how to stay sharp when they don't play every day. And that's hard to do, but they've both done a nice job with it.
They certainly have. Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus with us, Bases and Balls here on WAKR. Well, listen, we're heading into the All-Star break after this series with the Royals, and this team's right there battling for first place in the Central Division. And I know those will say, well, the division's not that hard. Well, you get into the playoffs and win your division, anything can happen. But when you look at what has happened to our team this year, Rosie, you got 3/5 of a starting rotation that are rookies. Oscar Gonzalez went to the minor leagues. David Bell hasn't been everything we wanted. We've had some changes at the catching position, and we've had some new guys, like we just mentioned, David Fry, come up and have an impact. How do you view this team heading in to the final weekend before the All-Star break? What's your assessment of this club?
I think Ray's still very much a work in progress, both offensively and pitching wise. And I think the biggest key to keep an eye on in the second half is how they manage the starting pitching with that many young arms in there, because they're going to have to slow them down and not pile up the innings just for future seasons. So how do they manage that? And who takes some of the starts that, you know, normally would go to, say, Tanner Bybee, but they're trying to be careful with them and that type of thing. So how they manage that may dictate how they stay in the race. It may dictate what they do at the trade deadline. There's so many things up in the air, more so than I remember in a long time. So they're battling to stay relevant, which they are because of the division. They'd love to get to the weekend at the 500 mark. It's possible, certainly, and then take it from there. But it is really hard to predict this year. You know, I think in years past, you could say, all right, this is the team. And Tito always gets them rolling in the second half, but I think they're still going through that finding out phase in a lot of areas and some key spots. So we'll see. But look, they got to like where they are. And you never know if they can put together a hot stretch in the second half and nobody really runs away with it. Maybe they're there at the end.
Oscar Gonzalez, I see, had a big few games down at Columbus. Really was stroking the ball well. Wanted your assessment on what you're hearing from the team in regards to Oscar. Is he being more consistent down there? Are they liking what they're seeing? And is he any closer to coming back to the club?
I think they're liking what they see, and it's been more than just a few games. He's been going well for about a month now. And that may be one of the things that you keep an eye on coming out of the All-Star break. Do they make some sort of change to get him up here? Because they are a little thin in the outfield right now. You look at someone like a Gabriel Arias who just isn't playing and probably needs to. Maybe they flip-flop them and Oscar gets some at-bats in the outfield. We'll see, but he's taking care of what he needs to there, and that's the important thing. He didn't go down there and struggle and just have a hard time dealing with being there. He's tried to get better, and he has been getting better. Is he where they want him at this point? Probably not, but getting closer. And he could be an option in the second half. That's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Jim Rosenhaus, Bases and Balls. He joins us each Friday here on the morning show and at WAKR.net. Rosie, before I let you go, we got Kansas City the entire weekend for us. This is a Royals team. It seems like we're saying it every year. They're in rebuild mode. This is a really young baseball team of the Royals.
Yeah, and then, Bray, it has not gone the way they had hoped. They were hoping with a new manager and some new staff and some things going on in the front office that are new, that they could turn a corner a little bit this year, and that has not happened. They have taken a big time step back. So we'll see. They played them tough last week. The games were good last week in Kansas City, close games. We'll see what happens here this weekend, but it's a team that realistically you feel like you should win the series, if not sweep the series. Easier said than done because it's the major leagues, and we've seen close games against teams that have bad records before. But, it's a weekend where I'm sure the Guardians are feeling good about what they could do if they play well.
Well, Rosie, we'll look forward to the calls with you and Hammy here on WAKR. Jim Rosenhaus, Bases and Balls. Rosie, as always, my friend, thanks for taking time to join us here on WAKR.
You got it, Ray.